Hey all, Nick's here. I've been gone for a couple of days. I've been out. I've been playing the game. I've been enjoying myself. And I'm just gonna talk a little bit about early game and how, as a new player to Path of Exile, you should approach the game and a little bit about how it works. I'm going to go into this assuming you know absolutely nothing about Path of Exile. So if you've got all of the basics down, there's no need to watch this video. Stop right now or keep watching. I don't care. Whatever. But it's just what this video is going to be. So, you saw me using some abilities. There's a bear trap, here's ethereal knives, here's skeleton totem, here's more bear traps. That's lag, it's caused by skeleton totem. And these are how abilities in Path of Exile look when you cast them, obviously. But the way that you get abilities is by using skill gems. You see here, I'm highlighting the ethereal knives I've been using. Now, some skill gems, like this freezing pulse, you can get at fairly low level, and they're fairly effective at early game. So, what does freezing pulse look like? In order to use it, we have to socket it into a gem. Okay, so you see now I can use it. Oh, the martyr looks kind of cool. But I'm gonna use it to kill this goat man. Yeah, die goat man. It's not dealing a whole lot of damage though, you know? Obviously, because it's a level 2 gem. You can level up gems in this game, and it's fairly simple. You just level them like this. But you can also modify your gems with other gems called support gems. You see I have this lesser multiple projectiles. It just says 2 additional projectiles that cost a little bit of damage. That'll be offset because they're getting hit with multiple things. So you see now I'm throwing 3 pulses of frost out, and how concentrated they are is based on how far away I click. And you'll see that. And Path of Exile is full of things like this, just abilities that work like this. There are tons of support gems, there are tons of skill gems, and you can just combine them in very, very interesting ways to make very effective builds. And it's part of the creative aspect of Path of Exile. That's just a very simple demonstration of how skill gems work and how you can socket and link things into interesting ways and patterns and stuff. So let's move on to defenses in this game. There are 4 primary defenses. There's the 3 obvious ones: armor, evasion, and energy shield. And then there's life. Energy shield functions a lot like it does in Borderlands, where you have a certain amount of energy shield. You can see I have some here, and I'm trying to get it knocked down. And it gets depleted before your life does, with the exception of chaos damage. And then, once you're out of combat for a little bit, it will regenerate slowly out of combat. And that is not the same as life will. Life will not regenerate unless you have some sort of life regeneration. So, it's very good for builds that don't plan on getting hit a lot, but just want that extra little buffer to avoid being one-shot by the big hits when they happen. Flicker Strike monsters will get to casters fairly easily. So it's definitely something important to have as a defense if you don't plan on getting hit a lot. There are ways around it. There are talents that make the better melee builds use energy shield instead of life. But that's for more advanced users, so I'm not going to get too into that. Just in general, energy shield is for casters. But that's how all of Path of Exile works. It's always, in general, this is true, but I can think of 14 different builds that are an exception. So it's a very interesting game at that. But anyways, suck armor. Armor reduces the damage you take from melee attacks, but it's less effective the stronger the attack is. And that's because the formula that they use absorbs significantly less as the attack gets stronger. So unlike a 100 hit from a monkey, you're probably going to be absorbing almost all of it if you have a lot of armor. But on a 3000 hit from like Vol, you're probably going to be absorbing none of it, or a very, very insignificant number of it. Because the hit's so big, the formula actually ignores most of your armor, for argument's sake. So armor is great against small hits, but useless against big hits. And now you have evasion, which is okay against all damage, but obviously you can't evade everything, Evasion uses a rolling formula to see whether or not you get hit. So if you have 10% evasion and you get hit, your evasion for the next hit is now going to be higher to compensate, to make it more likely that you dodge so that you don't get huge unlucky streaks or huge unlucky streaks. If you have 50% evasion, you will never get hit twice in a row by a creature, because when it adds, it goes up to 100 and then back down to 50, and then so on. So the formula kind of rolls into itself to make it easier to not get hit multiple times and get really unlucky. But the problem with both armor and evasion is those two really, really big hits. Armor won't reduce it, and evasion can't stop all of them. So when you're building a character, you're going to want to take into account life. Life will stop you from getting hit really, really hard. It's a good stat for casters to have, it's a good stat for melee to have, it's a good stat for everybody to have, unless you are building a build that does not use life, which is, again, the exception to the rule in Path of Exile, and is for more advanced users when you're looking at the skill tree. But basically, you're going to want to, if you're a caster, you're going to want to be focusing on life and energy shield on your gear, so that even though you don't plan on getting hit, when you do get hit, you don't just die. And as a melee character, you're going to be wanting to focus on either armor, evasion, or a mix of both in addition to life. And that's because you really want to mitigate some of the damage that's coming onto you, because you're a melee ranger, you're going to be taking a lot of that damage. Melee's a little weak in this game right now. They said they're going to be buffing it, and I hope that comes up soon, because I really do enjoy playing melee. I find it's a lot of fun, but it doesn't really deal a lot of damage for the safety that you would expect from, being in melee all the time. So, in any case, it's a little weak, but either way. Now, let's talk about the passive tree. The passive tree is insane. Yes, absolutely crazy. But it's actually not that bad once you figure out how to navigate it. This build was fairly simple. I knew I was going to be running some form of blood magic. I didn't want to take the talent here. But I did know I wanted as much regeneration as possible. So I said, okay, where's the regeneration? Regeneration's here. Regeneration's here. Here. And here. So I said, okay, how can I make a build that hits up as many of those nodes as possible and efficiently? And at the same time, how can I utilize this build to get me a lot more life and defenses and stats I need? You'll see here I'm getting these intellect nodes, this diamond skin node, and a whole ton of health. Along the way. And the way I essentially approached that was I just made a beeline to Golem's Blood and these life regen nodes. And I just kind of filled in the life nodes that were nearby. You see, this entire circle is just here for me. I just picked it up. And then I also said later on, oh, I want the crit nodes in the shadow tree, because they're very, very good, and I like them. And that's just arbitrarily what I decided to do. I'll probably respec out of this once I don't need this intellect node anymore, because I think this path is faster. But anyways, so that's basically what I said. I said I want to get to this part of the tree. Maybe you're playing a character and you go, oh, I really like the minion instability model, or the minion instability ability. So I'm gonna try and get there, and then along the way, I'm also going to try and choose a path that gets me more life or more defenses or static blows if you're using lightning damage, or whatever. The point is, you want to make your pilgrimage out to the nodes that you want to get as valuable as possible. So you see, my little pilgrimage down to this life node down here netted me a ton of life here and a lot of armor here, and this intelligence node here. So it wasn't wasted for me to run down here. I got what I wanted, and I got a lot of really, really good nodes along the way. And it's typically better to go a little bit out of your way to get to whatever you're looking for, rather than just beeline it down here and waste any nodes that you could get along the way. See, I could have just taken these melee nodes here and gotten here much faster, but I needed these life nodes because life is really important in this game for survival, especially in hardcore. So I didn't take the shortest path, I took the path that gave me the most benefit. And that's just what you'll have to do in Path of Exile. You'll have to figure out where the good nodes are, how you're doing it, where you're going to go, and what you're going to do to get there. It's a little overwhelming at first, but that's the advice I have for making new builds, is just plan it out ahead of time, understand where you want to go, and just kind of keep it reasonable. Good builds will typically have a mix of offensive and defensive capabilities. I'm not playing a melee character, but I know that a weak point of my build is reflect damage, so I know that I'm going to be taking a lot of my own physical damage, so I'm going to want armor to mitigate that, so I'm picking up these steel skin nodes. I'm going to grab this body and soul node later. And that's just going to be what I'm going to do with the build. So that's the basic gist of making builds, is that it's sort of an acquired skill. You'll get it as you play the game longer. Early on it'll be a little overwhelming, but as you start to realize what the good nodes are, what the bad nodes are, you'll start to get a feel for it. Next up we have currency. Now, an interesting part of this game is that the currency in this game is not actually gold. There is no gold in the game. It's completely removed through the system I like to call magic. Yes. But it's pretty simple. Currency is gotten through these little orbs. You'll see I'm using the most basic orb right here, Orb of Transmutation. Upgrades a normal item, a white item, into a magic item, a blue item. And there are lots of these orbs. This one re-rolls a magic item, so if you have an already blue item, it changes it to a different blue item. You have this one that enchants a magic item with a new random property. You'll see this one has one property. Blues can have up to 2. Oh look, I got energy shield. That kind of sucks. Oh well. Here we have this Onyx amulet. And there are a few vendor recipes as well in this game. I'll go over in more detail right now, or a bit later rather. But you'll see I have one of each gem, and one of each color of gem, and an amulet, just a random amulet. Any one works, and it gives me a reward of an Onyx amulet. And you can roll these however you want. You can hope you get things, whatever. And see, I'm just gonna re-roll this, and oh look, they were both kind of bad. But oh well, that's how rolling items works in this game. Fairly simple. Now, when you're talking vendor recipes, there are a few things to keep in mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What am I missing? Helmet. And ring. Okay. There are a few things to keep in mind as soon as I find a rare helmet somewhere in here. Oh, good. And as soon as I find a rare ring in here, why did I not come prepared? You'll do. Dope. Yeah, screw it. So, the most important vendor recipe that you'll have in this game is this one. It is one rare item for every slot you could equip. So you'll see I'm using 2 swords here. I could be using instead a 2-handed weapon. A helmet, gloves, boots, belt, 2 rings, necklace, and chest piece. And that gives me a single chaos orb. If these are all unidentified, it gives you 2. That recipe's a bit less used. I usually only use it if I'm like running a new character through the game and I have nothing. Or I have a ton of items in my stash already that I don't really care about losing. So that's the most important vendor recipe. There are a few others that are okay. There was the amulet recipe I showed you earlier. There is the recipe where you take an iron ring and a random gem, like this one. You can sell them to the vendor and it gives you a resist ring of whatever color the gem was. This one's a cold ring. That's pretty cool. It's really helpful for getting rings that are valuable that you need early on that the vendor doesn't carry or whatever. Other than that, there are lots of other currencies in the game. There are regal orbs, which upgrade magic items to rare items, which are helpful. Blesseds, which reroll the implicit properties, like this one. This one has 12 all elemental resistances as its implicit. That goes from 8 to 12. If it was an 8, I could reroll it, get a better one. All that good stuff. But in general, that's all just stuff you'll learn. Typically, you don't want to use any of your currencies unless they're not very valuable on early game stuff, and that's because you can buy late game. You can buy better stuff much cheaper. Really good early game items will generally run you very little currency. So instead of blowing 5 alchemy orbs on a level 30 wand, you can just trade 2 of them for a good level 30 wand to somebody who has one. If you need an upgrade. Later on, it becomes a little bit of a different story. You'll see I have no alchemy orbs right now, and that's because there are no wands that have what I need on the market right now. So I can't actually trade for them, so I'm trying to get one myself. And as you can see by the lack of my currency, that is not turning out to be a good idea. But, oh well. So usually, as a low-level character, the only currencies I will spend are Orbs of Transmutation, Orbs of Chance, and then Orbs of Augmentation. And that's what I'll use to get up in level. Occasionally I'll blow an Alchemy Orb on like an Onyx Amulet if mine absolutely sucks, but just in general, keeping your currency until you have a better understanding of the game is a good idea, because you don't want like a Mirror of Calandra to drop and just link it in trade chat and go, what's this for? And somebody says, I'll trade you an alchemy for it, and you've just traded the most rare currency in the game for a useless currency. So in general, I'd save all of your currencies until you get a very good understanding of the game. Transmutations and chances and augmentations are exceptions. You can roll pretty good blue items with them. If you have a ring that's just kind of mediocre, you can slap a transmutation on it and, oh, intelligence, I needed that, or oh, energy shield, I needed that, you know, or whatever. But that's what I've got for a good basic introduction to the game. I hope this was helpful in some way. If it wasn't, I'm sorry, I'm a terrible person. I'll go crawl into my hole now. But otherwise, that's all I've got. And I hope this was a good enough intro. I'll be sure to update this build later. This is a really interesting build, but it needs way more gear than I have right now, so it's not really working. I have another build plan that's really interesting. It's an elemental equilibrium build that isn't bad. I know, you never thought you'd see that, did you? But, so, you know, look for those coming up. I'm not going to be doing daily updates anymore, just because I don't really have the content to be doing them. If I get enough recommendations, I can hopefully start doing that, but, yeah, I don't really want to either. So, I'll update every so often. We'll keep the channel going. And if you have any questions, as usual, leave them in the comments, and I will get back to as many of them as I can. So, thanks for watching, and have a great day.